That's
Where are
awesome.
you? Where are you located,
I'm
Tamara?
in the Metro Detroit area in a little township called Commerce Township.
Oh, that's where I am.
Oh, cool. Hey, Marcia, neighbor.
Hey, neighbor.
You might recognize the name Zoner. We've been around. We have a greenhouse.
I was actually going to ask you if you were related to them.
Yep,
Yes.
those are my parents. Been running that greenhouse for my entire life.
They're about, the Zoner's place is about not even a half a mile from my house.
Oh, so we're real close. So we're real
Yeah.
close. So I'll talk about the meetup group a little bit toward the end, but if this resonates with you, since you're local, I do run monthly in-person events. Ouch. uh, and we'd love to meet you in person. Since COVID, we've been meeting outdoors as much as possible, but we never stopped meeting because it's so vital that we have connection with each other, no matter what's happening in the world. So,
Yeah,
I'll,
nice. We went with virtual, I'm with the American Business Women's Association, and
okay.
we went virtual for about a year and a half, and finally last August we started meeting in person again.
Nice. Yeah, even in the thick of it, we met in the park so that we could be outside and distancing from each other. And
Hmm.
then when the weather was getting colder, we met actually in Zoner's greenhouse when it was closed so that we
Oh,
could open up the windows but still have shelter. It was wonderful. So, yeah, we haven't
wow.
stopped. All right. Thank you, Diane, for that. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. And whoever wanders in, wanders in. But we have, gosh, a fair number of you now. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm so
Tamara,
grateful.
ca- just
Yeah.
real, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but I am trying to still register because I'm trying to log on from my laptop and it's a different email address. So I will continue to do that if I'm able to, because on
Okay.
the phone, if I get a call, everything will go away for me.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So yeah, that might happen here and there, and that's okay. Most of you are coming in muted, and unless I'm inviting you to interact or you have a question and I've invited you for questions, keep yourself muted just so that the quality of the sound is good. I am recording this, but it's really just for my purposes. I'm going to spotlight myself so that you don't show up in the recording starting now. And um, yeah, who is ready for greater happiness in their lives? I would love to see some hands or some yeses in the chat. Yes. Woo-hoo. Cool. So, real quick before we begin, I am Tamara, and I will tell you more about me in a little bit. For Zoom, with the basics, like I mentioned, just keep yourself muted unless we're interacting. And you might practice just muting and unmuting yourself real quick. I love to see your faces, so please do keep your camera on if at all possible. And it also keeps you more engaged. And I know this from my own experience, just attending events and as a speaker. There's much more engagement if we can see each other. So while I'm mentioning it, just take a moment and look at the other people in the room and maybe make eye contact with a few, even though it's not real in-person eye contact where we're loving up on each other. Energy is a real thing. So go ahead and look around, give a beautiful smile, and feel one another's presence. You're all here because as human beings, we share a lot of similar desires. And the one for happiness is a common theme for most of us. I believe that each one of us impacts the people in the world around us. And the happier we are individually, the more happiness we're able to bring into the world and spread into the world, just like a ripple in a pond. So, before we get into the meat of why we're here tonight, and before I tell you more about me, and what qualifies me to be talking to you about happiness, I want you each to take just a moment. And some of you did this. If you had registered prior to today, this morning, you would have received a happiness assessment and you may have completed that. But whether you did or not, if you did, go ahead and take note of your score and maybe pop it into the chat. But on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the least happy you've ever been, 10 being the happiest, where are you right now in your overall life? Oh, some good scores. Those people posting in the 70s in the chat, they took the happiness assessment earlier. Good. We've got some good, lots of good happiness here. And yet you still want greater happiness, right? We all want that 10. We all want that 100 score. Okay, cool. So set that score aside. And those of you with slightly lower scores, that's great too, because it just means that you have room, even more room to grow. Okay. So tonight, I want to share with you, first of all, that there are two main energies in life: expansion and contraction. And I want to invite you to do something with me now. And remember, I'm going to repeat this a couple of times, but the more that you put into this time together, into this class, the more that you will get out of it. So I invite you to let go just for tonight of worrying about feeling silly or looking silly or what other people might think of you, because here's a notable: what other people think of you is none of your business. What you think of you is your business. And courage is required in happiness. So play along with me, be brave, and I invite you to go ahead and hunch your body over, hunch your whole body, crunch up, contract your body, maybe even make a frowny face. And not now, but in just a moment, on the count of 3, I want you to say with me, I feel happy. Okay? 1, 2, 3. I feel happy. Okay, now relax and notice, did you feel happy? You can put it in the chat if you felt happy or if you felt something different. Describe how you felt in the chat. Yeah, no, did not feel happy. No difference. That's okay for very happy or present people. Felt confused. Nice. Thank you. Constricted. Yeah. Okay, let's now take a moment to experience the opposite. So sit up as tall as is comfortably possible for you. Expand your heart up toward the sky, those heart opening poses for the yogis out there. Open up your arms, really expand your body, and put a great big smile on your face. Yeah, really feel it. And in a moment, I'll count to 3, and together we'll say, I feel depressed. So 1, 2, 3. I feel depressed. Okay. You can relax. And again, notice how that felt. Did you feel depressed? Go ahead and pop that in the chat. Funny? No way. Weird? No. Yeah, it's okay to feel weird. I was smiling while saying it. Perfect. Yeah, right. It feels weird because there's some dissonance there. It's hard to feel happy when we're contracted, and it's hard to feel depressed when we're expanded. So let's talk a little bit more about this. It doesn't mean that I'm inviting you to or suggesting that you walk around like this all day long, because life is hard enough and we don't want you ending up in straitjackets. We want you to start noticing and becoming more aware of when you feel expanded and when you feel contracted, and noticing what happens for you in your body, in your mind, so that you can move toward what expands you. This cycle of expansion and contraction and the awareness and the honoring of it is probably one of the most important concepts that I have learned in all of personal development. All of it. We are so hard on ourselves for so many feelings. We label our feelings as good or bad, or right or wrong. Anybody do that? Yeah. But feelings are never bad or wrong. Feelings are just feelings. And it's important to honor the cycle. If we resist what we're feeling, we can get stuck in it. Growth, emotional evolution, comes in waves of expansion and contraction, and periods of contraction are normal. When we're contracted, we might feel sad, tired, unmotivated, frustrated, disconnected from others, or we might just not want to be around others. Periods of contraction are normal in all of nature, and we're just a part of nature. A wave on the ocean rises and falls. Spring brings new life, summer blooms, autumn harvest, and then winter resets it all by closing up and quieting down again. Day turns to night and then dawns again. Nature is this endless cycle of expansion and contraction, and we are part of nature. I am going to share a screen with you now. Whoops. Oh, I'll get back to that stuff. Okay. So here are some feelings you might experience when you're in contraction: fatigue, fear, procrastination, resistance, disease, or dis-ease. When you're in expansion, you'll have more energy. You'll feel more vital. You'll be more optimistic. You'll be in this flow of love. It feels good to be expanded. And this is why it's important to understand this cycle so that we stop judging and simply allow. The secret really is to learn how to accept change without the resistance or hanging on too tightly to the good stuff. When we allow ourselves to be open and expand in the midst of contraction, we're working proactively. We don't fall into this trap of being a victim or feeling helpless or blaming or shaming ourselves. And in this light, roadblocks or challenges or limitations in life can actually offer the greatest opportunities for growth. Many of us spend time dreaming of a better future or running from a less than perfect past, and we rarely seem to live right in the present moment. With private clients and in my classes and workshops that people pay for, I teach this 7-step process of moving from contraction to expansion. And sometimes, if it feels right for a specific individual, I'll also share it on my complimentary discovery calls to help you on your pathway to happiness. But when we utilize this process, we start to begin to look at contracted states as opportunities instead of problems. Instead of going and going and going and going and then crashing and breaking down, we can see that we actually need to slow down. When we feel tired, we say, oh, cool, my body, the universe, whatever is telling me it's time to take a rest. And when we listen to that and we slow down instead of judge and push through, we take good care of ourselves and we develop some self-respect and some integrity. And self-care, most of you know, a lot of you are in the healing arena, isn't just massages or days on the beach or girls' nights out. It's about listening in to what our feelings and emotions have to tell us and paying attention to what we need. Sometimes it is a drink with a friend, and sometimes it's doing laundry, and sometimes it's petting our cat or dog, and sometimes it's just going to bed early. Nourishing ourselves in the way that best serves us in the moment is what self-care is truly all about. One of the 7 steps in that process is using our tools. It's a later step. We don't use our tools right away. But once we're ready to use our tools like meditation or exercise, laughter, dancing, talking to a friend, or even just bawling your eyes out, crying is a great tool, can help us shift from contraction to expansion. And I'd like to teach you one such tool tonight. I'll give you a couple of tools to take home with you tonight. And I want to give you a direct experience using it. So is anybody here still feeling a little rushed or harried from their day? Raise your hands. Maybe you were rushing here to there. Some of you still work in offices. Good. Thank you for raising your hands. I'm looking through, I'm scrolling. So I want to begin with a practice called the inner ease technique. I like to start this in my talks. I like to do it at the very beginning, honestly, because I'm usually kind of rushing through all the last minute preparations to have a talk like this. Even though I'm doing it from home, tonight, and it really helps me settle in. Yeah, thank you, Christine. Helps me settle into this moment, helps you settle into this present moment. And it's a beautiful tool that you can use anytime, anywhere in just a matter of minutes. So I'm going to take you thoroughly through the steps tonight, but this could take you 1 to 5 to 10 minutes. And it's called the inner ease technique, also known as the quick coherence technique. And it's a practice from the Institute of Heart Math, which studies the relationship between our heart and our happiness. And what happens when we are in a stress response, not only does our body release more cortisol, that stress hormone, but it puts our heart rhythm into an incoherent pattern. So it's just kind of all over the place. And this quick coherence technique helps us put our heart rhythm back into a smooth, rhythmic, coherent pattern. And why this is important is because things like anger, frustration, and those negative emotions, spending just 5 minutes in those states can actually depress our immune system for up to 6 hours. That's a long time. But the opposite is also true. So if we spend 5 minutes experiencing the feelings of love, appreciation, and gratitude, then guess what happens? We increase or boost our immune system for up to 6 hours. So imagine, especially since the pandemic, how important this is for you. If you're going to a concert, boost those happy hormones, those endorphins in your own immune system with this practice you're going to learn right now. Okay, so this part is optional. I like to use mudras, which are just hand positions, and I enjoy using this thunderbolt mudra. And you place your hands right over your heart. The mudra is not necessary, but what this hand position, this mudra does, is it is meant to inspire courage and confidence during challenging times. So, since stress is often a challenge, and sometimes the circumstance requires a little courage, this is a great mudra for you. You're just putting your hands like that right over your heart. If you're comfortable doing so, close your eyes, but you do not have to. And then if you choose to keep your eyes open, I invite you to simply soften your focus. So instead of looking at the screen, because you don't need to see me now, look down, let your eyes just soften so that your attention turns inward. And start to take a little bit of a deeper, longer breath than your normal breath. Let it be comfortable, just a little deeper and a little longer. And this is part one. And usually you can spend just about a minute putting your attention on that slightly deeper, slightly longer breath. And now for the next minute or so, with your eyes still closed, breathing gently, imagine the energy of your breath moving in and out of your heart center. So you're still breathing from your diaphragm, but imagine the energy of your breath going in and out of your heart center. For some people, it helps to visualize a color. Maybe you just see a green wave moving in and out of your heart center. And then you can add a little mantra saying to yourself in your mind or quietly out loud, love, ease, compassion. Repeat love, ease, and compassion while consciously cultivating those feelings of love, ease, and compassion so that you let them rise up in your body. love, ease, compassion. Beautiful. The final piece to really bring this home is to imagine someone you love, someone who only brings positive emotions to your heart and mind. It could even be a pet, but someone who, when you think of them, makes you smile and you really feel the love. Let their face fill your mind and let your heart fill with the positive feelings of love as you imagine them. Still breathing gently, and allow yourself to fill up with those loving feelings until the love fills you and expands around you. Nice. Okay, now noticing how calm and centered you feel. Maybe take another couple of deeper breaths to reset. Wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes. And when you're ready, open your eyes and notice how you feel. And I invite you to pop into the chat if you're feeling a little more calm and serene than you were a few minutes ago. Yeah, relaxed. Good. Now that took what, maybe 4 or 5 minutes. And calm. Yeah, feeling centered. And what you have done for yourself is put your heart back into that rhythmic, coherent pattern, peaceful, calm, and boosted your immune system. Pretty easy. Easier than reaching for those vitamins or chicken noodle soup. And that's available to you anytime. So thank you for sharing how that felt. And now that we're relaxed and fully present, I'll tell you a little bit more about me and what qualifies me to talk to you and teach you a little of what I know about happiness and why it matters so much to me. So most of you know by now because you signed up for this event and my name was on it. I am Tamara Zoner. I'm a speaker, a coach, and a certified happiness trainer. I'm also a mom to 3 kids who will all be teenagers by mid-September. Currently, they are 12, 15, and 17. And I have to be honest and let you know that I'm actually one of the lucky ones when it comes to happiness. I was definitely born with a natural optimism and probably a fairly high happiness set point, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. But that does not mean that I've always been happy. Some of you have known me for a long time. I have some of my meetup members who've been coming to events for years. And in fact, it was just 8 years ago that I returned to the US. We came for a visit, my children and I, from the UK. We'd been living in England for 2 years and hadn't been home since we'd moved. I was a newly certified life coach and passion test facilitator. And coming home, I was really excited to share this process of the passion test with my friends and family who, I hadn't seen some of them since college or even high school. So this was very exciting and very important to me. And I wanted to practice on them for me, but I also wanted to give them the gift of clarity in their lives, which I had started to experience more of and find my way back to myself. And one afternoon, the first Saturday I was home, so this is actually almost exactly 8 years ago today, give or take a day or two. I was outside hosting this beautiful workshop on a beautiful summer day in my mom and dad's gorgeous backyard on their 10 acres. And I shared with them this knowledge and wisdom from the passion test, which is a fabulous process. Some of you know, some of you don't. I might explain it more later. But the process is essentially to make a list of the 10 things you want to be, do, feel, and have in your life right now. And I said to them, I had maybe 6 people in the backyard, okay, This is where you write down what you truly want in your heart of hearts, those dreams that you might have set aside for more practical choices or for the comfort of others. Right now, you write down what you truly want your life to look and feel like, not what you'll settle for or you think might be good enough. No, I said, this is where you shoot for the stars. And oh my gosh, as I said those words out loud to people that I loved, a deep, almost painful awareness came over me. And it came up from within me, from my gut, like my soul. And it said, Tamara, you're not doing that. You are not doing what you are telling them to do. You're a big fat liar. And oh, I just stood there while they started making their lists and realized that I was lying to myself, that I had been for so many years. I had been married for 15 years at that point and had come to the erroneous conclusion that I was stuck with what I had. That because my parents had been married for almost 50 years, I just had to deal with it and get through every day of life with an emotionally abusive, controlling, high functioning alcoholic husband. And here I was on this visit home for the first time I'd traveled without my husband since we'd moved to the UK. And it was probably only the third or fourth time in 15 years that I had traveled without him because I wasn't really allowed to, because I might do something wrong. And I was surrounded by these people who loved me and who showed it. And I thought, wow, I told them to shoot for the stars. I couldn't lie to myself anymore. And I knew in that moment I had to change my life and I had to take back my power and start walking my talk. And often, when we make a decision for ourselves, when we clearly state what we want to create in our lives, known in the passion test work that I do as an intention, the universe rises up so lovingly to meet us, to show us that it was the right choice, to confirm that it's the right step, and to create ease for us. And the universe did that for me that day. In the time that it took my workshop attendants and myself to make a new list of passions, to take them through their lists, was about maybe 45 minutes. My then husband had called me 24 times. Now he knew exactly what I was doing because, like a good wife, a good abused, controlled wife, I had informed him of every minute of my day so that he wouldn't suspect me of running off and sleeping with all my old high school friends. Yeah, he had called me 24 times, and the messages became more and more agitated as they progressed, going from, where are you? What are you doing? Well, he knew. To accusing me of kidnapping our children and saying he was going to send his mother, who was still in the US, who had accompanied us from Europe, to come and get the kids. And I was like, what the hell am I doing with this man? And so, ah, even though I was shaken, I was so grateful because it was clear, so very clear, that I needed to make a new choice for myself and for my children. And that's exactly what I did. And following my new list of top 5 passions, I chose a much happier life. That part of the story cut real short and sweet, right? I started taking one step at a time and then one more to create more inner happiness, to really heal the parts of me that had been hurt. And that happiness began to reflect in my external world. What we create within, we create outside. And that's why I'm here today, because I see the grief in the world. I see the sadness and the anger and the frustration. I see the loneliness, especially since the pandemic hit and people have been more isolated. I feel the loss that people are experiencing. And I see the stuckness that so many people experience, that they think they just have to deal with the life that has been handed to them. Well, they might say, well, could be worse. That's not life. That's not joy. That's not fulfilling, and that's not what you're here for. Life is meant to feel good. But today we have more stuff and more ease and more technology and more ways to do things than we ever have before. But we're unhappier than ever as a society. And it's not just in the US, it's worldwide. The numbers cross over. But in the US specifically, 1 in 4 women are on antidepressants. And I'm here sharing this information with you because I know for sure from experience that no matter what is happening in your life or around you, with the right tools and information, we can create greater happiness in our lives. We can create more peace, more joy. We can create an inner sense of peace and well-being. And we can create lives that aren't just good enough, but lives that we actually love, lives that we're excited to wake up to. Do you want that? Would you like that? Does that sound good? Drop a yes in the chat. Thank you, Diane. Drop a yes in the chat if you would like greater happiness, because that's what we're going to start doing today. Yes. Thank you, Hina. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Marsha, I like that excited response. I love exclamation points. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for listening, and thank you for holding space for that story. Okay, so cool. We have a lot to cover in the next little bit, an hour-ish. And I want to let you know right from the start, this is just a snippet of our time together. And it would be a disservice of me not to offer you an opportunity to go deeper with me. And I'll share more about that later. But I also want you to know, if you have no interest in going further than this time together tonight, that you will leave here with tangible information and practices. You already have one that you can utilize to start building and strengthening your happiness muscles on your own today. Because literally, happiness is a muscle, and we have to practice to build it. So let's start with the working definition of happiness that we're using tonight. It is from the best-selling book by Marcy Shimoff, who also wrote the Chicken Soup for the Women's Soul. Some of you might be familiar with that series. Marcy wrote a book called Happy for No Reason, which also hit the New York Times bestseller list. And in it, she defines happiness in terms of being happy for no reason. I'm going to pull this up on the screen for you so that you can read the definition along with me. An inner state of peace and well-being that doesn't depend on circumstances. I like to repeat that. Our working definition of happiness tonight is an inner state of peace and well-being that doesn't depend on circumstances. So notice this is not, you will feel like skipping through fields of sunflowers every moment of your life. No, it's not the top-notch super joy. It's an inner state of peace and well-being. And it doesn't mean that you'll run around with a silly grin on your face all the time, or that you'll constantly feel happy, or that you'll live in a state of denial or toxic positivity, because we don't want that either. You'll still have emotions. You'll still feel what you feel, grief when you experience loss, frustration at various situations, maybe at work, maybe on the road. But you'll have an inner state of peace and well-being, this backdrop of peace and well-being that allows you to move through those challenging circumstances and situations more easily and quickly. I like to say, if you feel it, you heal it. If you ignore it, you store it. So authentic happiness is not a temporary feeling. It's an allowance of all of our feelings. And it's an inner state of well-being that we can consistently return to. And the more that we practice some of the things that you'll learn tonight, the easier it is to step back into it. Okay. Research in happiness and positive psychology has shown that there's a continuum of happiness. We're not just happy or unhappy, and you probably knew that. There is a range. And I love this continuum that Marcy Shimoff created from the book Happy for No Reason. At the far end, or the low end of the continuum, there's unhappy. So this is where we feel contracted, tired, numb, we procrastinate more, We don't even want to talk to the people that we love. We feel low. We might feel sad or angry. And then we have happy for bad reasons, which is usually our attempt to find relief from our happiness. We want to alleviate our unhappiness. We want to forget about it for a while. And this happiness is fleeting and often includes behavior that could be compulsive or addictive. How many of you have, in a sad or down moment, done some binge shopping on Amazon? Or watched an entire season of some show on Netflix that you didn't really even care about, right? We just want to forget for a few minutes. And we might also overindulge in sugar and gambling and sex or social media. A lot of us spend a lot of time scrolling just because we want to tune out of how we feel instead of tune in. And while this might bring some brief relief, it does not bring lasting results. Next up, we have happy for good reasons. And this is where we've spent quality time and energy to create positive relationships, successful careers, or material desires like a beautiful home. Happy for good reasons is what most of us mean when we say happy. And yet these are external things, right? Relationships with other people are outside of us. Our home is outside of us. Our career is outside of us. There's nothing wrong with these things. They're an important part of life. They're like the icing on the cake that makes it even sweeter. But they aren't stable or solid in terms of happiness. Because if you lose any of those things, what happens to your happiness? It goes with it. It goes with the relationship. It goes with the job. It goes with the home. So what we want then is to be happy for no reason, to get to this inner state of peace and well-being. And people who experience this aren't depending on outside circumstances for their happiness. And it also means that they don't lose their happiness when those outside circumstances change. There's this quote from the book that I love so much. Marcy says, "When you're happy for no reason, you bring your happiness to your outer experiences rather than trying to extract happiness from them. You don't need to manipulate the world around you to make you happy because you live from happiness, not for happiness." Now, I want to share with you one of the most important pieces of research findings in the last 20 years in the study of happiness and positive psychology, and this is the happiness set point. So many of you have heard, I see somebody drinking water right there, you bet. The cup is half full or half empty, right? Cup is half full. I see the cup half full. Somebody else might see the cup half empty. We're born with it. And this is actually partially true, but it's not the whole story. So we each have this happiness set point that works like a thermostat setting. And no matter what happens to us, whether good or bad, we generally hover around our happiness set point unless we do something about it to change it. And this explains why people who win the lottery are happier for a time, but within about a year, they return to their original happiness set point. And the same is true for those who experience great loss or trauma or negative experiences. Within about a year, they come back up to where they were. We can swing up or down a little bit from our thermostat. Like if it is 100 degrees outside, your air conditioning might not stay at 72. It might creep up a little bit. And if it's negative 20 below, the heat might not work as well as it does if it's 50. But with some simple practices, we can strengthen that thermostat and we can even raise our happiness set point. And since that set point is key to our happiness, let's take a look at a slide and see how it's determined. Okay, there's our little set point. Okay, ready for this? It's 50% genetics. That is the born with it piece. But it's just 10% circumstance. 10% circumstance. That is a tiny piece of the pie. And isn't it the one that we're all trying to control and change? Oh, If I got that promotion, then I'd be happy. If I had a better, bigger house, then I'd be happy. If my partner would just put the toilet seat down, then I'd be happy. Right? The if then is a myth of happiness, because no matter what changes out there, you're still you and your set point is still the same unless you do something about it. And so that brings us to the other 40%, which are our habits. Your habits of thought and behavior. What you think, how you think, and what you do. And this is where we have the most control. And it turns out that the biggest difference, listen closely, the biggest difference between happy people and unhappy people is simply their habits. Those habits of thought and behavior. And there's more good news. Scientists in the field of epigenetics, which is the study of our genes and DNA, are saying now that this 50% genetic piece can actually be influenced by our habits. Influenced. And that means that up to 90% of our happiness set point is in our own circle of influence, not the circumstances. I can't make my clients do the work that will make them happier. I can't make the weather be 76 and sunny every single day. I can't make the government do what I think would work for the world. But I can take charge of my habits of thought and behavior. So if it's just that easy, I mean, that seems easy, right? Oh, just change my habits. Cool. Add a new habit that's good for me. And then I'll be happier. Well, why aren't we making those changes then? Let's find out with a little exercise. So I invite you to hold your hands out and put them together like that. And clasp your fingers all together. And then notice which thumb is on top. So a little aside for you, the research shows that those of you with your right thumb on top are better thinkers. But you probably knew that. Those of you, myself included, with the left thumb on top, we're the sexier bunch. Okay, now here's the real experiment. Open up your fingers, rotate them, close them again so that the other thumb is on top. And no, this is not going to make you smarter or sexier. But notice how it feels. Take a moment and just notice how it feels to have the opposite thumb on top. And then once you've experienced it, go ahead and write in the chat how that felt. How did it feel to put the opposite thumb on top? Awkward, clumsy, unnatural, odd. Yeah. Oh, more in control. Go, Hina. Uncomfortable. Yeah. So there's your answer, folks. The answer to why we don't do the things that will help us take steps toward positive change and greater happiness is because it feels weird and uncomfortable. So we don't stick with it. Anybody try to change their eating habits for the better or start exercising, and after like 3 days, you're like, this sucks. I'm going back to the usual. It's hard. Change is hard. Creating new habits of thought and behavior is simple, but it's not easy. And there's comfort in the status quo, no matter if it feels good or bad most of the time. Our brains love for things to stay the same. They don't like change. Our subconscious minds want things to stay the same, whether we consciously perceive it as great or terrible, doesn't matter. So I have done a variety of modalities and practices in the last 10 years as I first tried to get back to myself within the marriage, and then, as I left the marriage, really do the work to become the woman that I knew I could be, that I knew I really was, and that I just hadn't seen for a while. And over these past 10 years, I've practiced a lot of what Marcy wrote in the book, Happy for No Reason, which I read about 12 years ago for the first time. She was a featured teacher in that movie, The Secret, all about the law of attraction. And I read every single one of those teachers' books, and this one stuck with me. And over 10 years, it took a lot of work and effort and attention to my habits of thought and behavior. But I can tell you for sure now, I am one of the happiest people that I know, and not much throws me. Like I mentioned earlier, I have almost 3 teenagers, and I still love my life and my time with my kids. Even when COVID hit, I I was working in senior living at the time, and our community was the first in Michigan to have a positive COVID case, and subsequently, about 20 of my residents died over the next couple of months. And I got COVID and was off work for 3 weeks. I was exposed the very first day back to work when we had a positive, and started feeling ill about 5 days later. And of course, I had my happiness set point dip a little bit. I was scared. I was losing people I loved. I was worried for my mother and my father, who both have underlying conditions, and I lived next door to at that time. But I bounced back within a couple of weeks, not physically necessarily, but emotionally and mentally, because I'd already been practicing these tools for so long. I had strong habits of happiness. And I don't want it to take you 10 years to be one of the happiest people that you know. So that's why I do this work. That's why we're here talking about this and sharing it. So, in the book Happy for No Reason, Marcy came up with 21 main happiness habits that anybody can practice to raise their happiness set point. And you've already learned one of them, that inner ease technique. And I'm going to give you an opportunity to have all of them delivered straight to your mailbox later tonight in just a short time. And the habits fall into 7 main areas. So these are the 7 secrets to greater happiness. Since it's really quite hard for any of us at any age to remember 7 of anything, Marcy conveniently put this in what she calls a home for happiness. And I'm going to share that with you and share a brief overview of the 7 areas. And if you're willing and ready, and even if you're not ready, but you're willing to build a very strong home for happiness, to build those strong habits, I am totally willing to help you with the construction of that home. And on a free discovery call, we can start building it together. So here's how the house relates to the 7 areas of happiness. And as I go through these, I want you to consider where you're already strong. So, where's your strongest area? And where you might be the weakest. Okay, so pay attention and take note to yourself where you're strong and where you might need a little bit of muscle building. So, the first area, anytime we're building any kind of structure, is the foundation. And in our foundation for happiness, we need to take responsibility for our happiness. So we can ask ourselves this question: am I showing up in my life as a victor, strong, powerful, courageous, or as a victim? Am I constantly blaming other people or the circumstances in my life for my experience and complaining about it? Or do I own my happiness? Do you own your own happiness and take the necessary action to support it? Uh, in my longer classes, I'll share a video. It's on YouTube. You can look up 2 corporate people stuck on an escalator. And they're these very smart, professional looking people. And they're a few steps away from each other riding up this escalator. And all of a sudden, it stops. And they look around. And they look at each other. And they're like, oh, great. Now what are we going to do? And this video is about 3 minutes long. It really punctuates the point. After 30 or 40 seconds, they're like, help. And they're shouting for help. And they're like, oh, what are we going to do now? This is terrible. Worst part of my day. Now my day is ruined. What did they need to do? Start walking. It's an escalator. So There are things that we can do to improve our situations, but for the reasons you learned back when we did this hand exercise, it's uncomfortable. It's weird, it's awkward, so we don't do it. So the foundation for your greater happiness is taking responsibility for it. And that doesn't mean blaming yourself or beating yourself up. Not one bit. It means that you can make change now. You couldn't control what happened. You might not be able to control what's happening, but you can control your thoughts and your behavior. Okay. The second piece is the pillar of the mind. Do your thoughts support your happiness, or do you have a lot of negative thinking that robs you of your happiness? This is the area of happiness where I teach you not to believe everything you think and to question the thoughts that you do have. We have a lot of thoughts every day, on average 60,000. And most of them are repeated and most of them are negative. So it's not your fault if you lean toward the negative, or if your friends or family do. You're like, oh, that one person, she's so negative. We're built that way. That's how we evolved. We paid attention to the dangerous stuff and we stayed away from it, but only by registering it really quickly to stay safe. And it takes a lot longer to register a positive. So this is the area where you get to start being aware of how you think to yourself, how you talk to yourself, that inner voice, and maybe start leaning into the positive a little bit more. Massive shifts can happen in our lives when we give a little bit of attention to how we speak and think to ourselves. Now, the third area of the house is one of my favorites. It's the heart, the pillar of the heart. Here, ask yourself, do you live with an open heart, with love, with gratitude, kindness, generosity? Or do you live with a closed, contracted heart? Do you often experience anger? Do you hold on to resentment? Do you find it hard to forgive people? In my longer courses, my deep dives, participants learn some incredible exercises and hear miraculous stories related to the heart and forgiveness. And one of the most transformational exercises that I've used in my own life and give to most clients, not all, if it seems right for them, is called Ho'oponopono. And that's shared in that section of the heart. I love the heart. There's some really cool studies done about words and their impact on things. So I share a lot in that section. But anyway, moving on, the fourth pillar is the pillar of the body. Are your cells happy? Do you have the biochemistry of happiness? And this can be a tricky area for a lot of us, because even though we know we only get this one package this time around, we still sometimes eat too much, sometimes don't bother exercising, we don't get enough sleep. And those are the main areas. Nutrition and movement and sleep are vital to our happiness. So are you getting what you need in those areas? Next up is the pillar of the soul. Do you feel plugged into spirit, connected to that bigger energy of life, whatever you call it? I host a podcast called Spirit Cafe, and we have boiled it down to the yada yada, because initially we were saying, whatever you call it, God, the universe, source, mother, nature, whatever. And then finally we just said the yada yada. So whatever you call it, it doesn't matter. What matters is that feeling of connectedness to something bigger than you, the trees, each other, anything, that connectedness. The sixth area is the roof. We put a little roof on our house, and this is our purpose and meaning. Do you feel inspired by life? The happiest people in the world find purpose and meaning in their everyday experience. So ask yourself, are you doing things regularly that bring meaning and purpose into your experience? This is where I bring in the passion test for my clients. And I take every single one of my private clients, whether they're working one-on-one with me or in a group, and I also do them on their own. It's a one-off if you want it to be. And it helps you to remember what lights you up And then you start doing them. And then the final area is our garden. And this one is hard for a lot of people, women in particular. It has to do with who we surround ourselves with. So are you surrounded by a lot of toxic people, the weeds? Or do you cultivate beautiful relationships, supportive, loving friendships, those roses and gardenias and other lovely things that support your happiness? Do you have healthy, solid, intact boundaries for yourself? Can you say no with love and ease? These are the things that we cover in the garden, in the relationships. Oh, I wish I could share everything with you tonight. And we don't have time for that. I'm checking the time as it is. And if your interest is piqued, if you'd like to go a little deeper and you're willing to invest some time and energy into yourself, I'll let you know how to book a free call with me in a few minutes. But first, oh, I already closed the slide. Take a look at those areas again. Let me bring it back up for you. And in the chat, would you please share, if you're so willing, which area is the hardest for you? Where do you feel a little weak? And where do you feel the strongest? I don't know if I can see the chat while I'm sharing my screen, but let's see. I can't. But as soon as I stop it, I'll be able to see those comments. So which area are you strong in? And which area or areas do you feel weaker in? Because it's in those areas where you feel weaker that when you put your attention on them, start practicing the tools in those areas, that you can make the biggest, quickest shifts in your happiness. Okay, I'm going to stop the share so I can see your comments. Chat. Oh, nice ranking. Okay. Yeah, let's see some more. Courage is a part of happiness, remember? So go ahead and share where you're strongest and share where you're weakest in that home for happiness. Strong heart. Good, Tiffany. And you know what? That strong heart for a lot of us can also make the garden weak because of those boundaries. So often those of us who love to give and give and give and give have a hard time creating clear, healthy, stable boundaries. Strong in mind, weak in relationships. Yeah. Strong in purpose. Thank you. Yeah. A lot of us need to take better care of ourselves. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. I've said it several times. I'll probably say it 10 more in the next 20 minutes. Courage is vital to happiness and to authentic happiness, right? Anybody can act happy, but it takes courage to show up as you are, to be vulnerable and to say, yes, you know what? I do need to work on these areas and I'm willing to. And maybe I need a little bit of help doing it. Okay. So 1 week after I offered a class that focused just on the foundation, I spent a whole hour talking about taking personal responsibility for your happiness. And I invited them, as I will invite you today, at the end of our time together to choose an intention. What will you commit to for the next 2 weeks or 2 weeks to 30 days? Sometimes I take it easier on my seniors. What will you commit to for the next 2 weeks in doing to support you in your happiness, in taking responsibility for your happiness? And so 1 week later, this resident burst into my office. I was then the director of life enrichment at a senior community. And she said, with her cute little New York accent that I can't do, "You changed my life." And I was like, okay, yay. How did I do it? Because I knew I didn't do it. I knew she had done it. And she said that she committed to one simple change. She stopped complaining. She committed to stop complaining to her son on their daily calls. He would call her every day. And her commitment was, I will not complain to my son on our daily calls. She could come in and complain to me or to the food service staff, but she wouldn't complain to her son. And what she noticed is that she had previously been walking around all day collecting complaints. Oh, I can tell him about that. I can tell him how my food was cold at breakfast. I can tell him how there's nothing to do around here. I can tell him that that one lady's always complaining. And in that week, she radically changed her own level of happiness. And it was very inspiring to see her taking dedicated action that probably wasn't easy, but was very simple. She's still a happier person. She still complains, but she's made a difference in her happiness. I've been doing this work for nearly 10 years, for about 10 years, 11, 12 maybe on myself, and 8 years with others. And what I've learned in that time working with clients, hundreds and hundreds of clients, I have learned that true and lasting change occurs with baby steps. Baby steps. One small, committed, devoted daily action at a time. And once the first action becomes a habit, then we can add on more. So we take it easy on ourselves. We don't say, oh, I'm changing my entire life today. We say, oh, I'm going to start noticing when my shoulders tense up and I'm contracted, and consciously moving back into expansion. Carla, that is true. That is what we want, right? Instant gratification. I want it now. I want to lose 10 pounds by tomorrow, and I'm not going to bother if I can't. But that's not reality for us. That's Hollywood. So I want to leave you with one more powerful practice that you can use by yourself or with others. I love to invite people to start using this as their greeting. And I invite you also to begin to consider which practice you've learned tonight that you will commit to doing over the next 2 weeks to 30 days. And if you want to see if this stuff actually works, don't take my word for it, but actually do it. Because, to quote Marie Forleo, who's a very successful entrepreneur, everything works when you do. I can't make you happier, but you can. You can. Everything works when you do. Okay, this exercise is called What's Good With Me. And let me think about how we want to do this. I want to keep us all having fun together. So in my longer courses, I'll put you in chats. But tonight, I want to keep us all in the same room. So for a whole minute, I'm going to invite you to type into the chat, like everything you can in that minute, what's good with me is. So you don't have to keep writing the sentence, but I want you to think to yourself over and over, what's good with me is, and I'll keep the time. But for this practice, I'm going to demonstrate for you. So if somebody could volunteer to just keep track of me for 1 minute, and then you can unmute yourself and tell me when my minute's up. Do I have a timekeeper? Have a volunteer? Yes, thank you, Diane. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate. You get to type this into the chat, but I'm going to, or you can even say it out loud, but I want to see at least one of them in the chat. What's good with me is, okay, ready? We can go, Diane. What's good with me is, I have 15 of you still here. What's good with me is, today was a beautiful day. What's good with me is, I've got a candle burning, I've got tea, I've got a dog sleeping quietly next to me. What's good with me is, I have the house to myself aside from all my furry animals. What's good to me is, I get to do more of this tomorrow. What's good with me is, I got to do this yesterday with a group of seniors. What's good with me is, I look professional on top, but I've got crummy little painted shorts on bottom. What's good with me is, you're all smiling and I get to see your gorgeous faces, even though we're not in the room together. What's good with me is, I feel very prepared for tonight. I've done this 100 times now and it feels so natural. What's good with me is, I get to do what I love every day of my life. What's good with me is, so here's where it gets a little tricky after a minute. What's good with me is, it's kind of steamy in here, but you know what? I have naturally curly hair and it just makes it better. Was that my time, Diane?
Sorry, time.
Perfect. Thank you. So notice that I didn't just say what's good with me once, but I repeated it over and over. And there's a very specific reason that I do that. And as you practice this, I'd invite you to practice this maybe 2 minutes a day, every day for the next 2 weeks. Could be one of your practices that you commit to. When you say it over and over, what you're actually doing is teaching your brain to look for what's good. And that is one of the ways that we override our negativity bias, that part of the mind that instantly focuses on the negative, because it actually takes 20 seconds or more for our brain to register a positive in order to create a new neural pathway, that groove that makes things that we begin with into habits, right? That's how we make habits. We learn how to play the piano, but if we don't keep doing it, we forget. We learn a language, but if we don't keep using it, we forget because the neural pathway goes away, just like an overgrown path in the forest. And so by saying what's good with me is, you're telling your brain, pay attention to what's good. And notice I was specific. I didn't just say my family, what's good with me is the weather, right? I got more specific. I talked about your smiles. I am seeing, I'm going to butcher your name. Anu, you put it in shortcuts, so that makes it easy. Thank you. Like your beautiful smile was what prompted me to say that I can see all your smiling faces, because it's gorgeous. Look at Anu. She has a gorgeous smile. And so I'm noticing around me every minute, because the more we look for it, the more we see. What you put your attention on grows stronger in your life. And so this is an invitation for you to start paying attention to all the beauty in your life, because there's so much more than you realize. So, all right, I'm going to keep the time. And now get your fingers warmed up. Go ahead and put those hands together, warm up those fingers, get that keyboard handy. And for 1 whole minute, complete this sentence. What's good with me is. And you don't have to type that every time, but go ahead and say it to yourself every time. Ready, set, type. Oops. And you can hit enter once in a while. So I can see them. Oh, thank you, Tiffany. Nice. And go ahead and take a glance at the chat once in a while, because when we see what other people have going on that's good with them, it helps us remember what's good with us too. I'm going to give you guys 30 more seconds that you took this time for this class. Awesome, Liz. Yeah, delicious dinner. Had a great day at work, hearing nature, sitting on the deck on the lake. But Disney socks, super fun. Oh, I went to the eye doctor too. Studied, worked out, awesome. You can talk and make sense, making new friends. All right, that was a little over a minute. How did that feel to take a minute and a half? Yeah, thumbs up. Thank you. How easy is it to improve your mood in a moment, in a minute? I love that. And Liz, I love that so much. In my passion test workshops, I talk about my story about being an angry psycho beast mother and yelling at my children, to changing that habit and speaking to them instead with loving kindness. And it transformed my relationships with them, which is why now I got a message from my 15-year-old, almost 16-year-old. I miss you, Mom, because they're at their dad's this week, right? Like my teenagers love spending time with me because I took responsibility for my happiness. And that included the way that I responded to frustrating situations. Yeah. Yes. And do save the chat. You can do that by clicking in the chat box on those 3 little dots, and you can save the chat. And then you can look at what other people have going on that's good with them. And it's inspiring to see that, which is why it's so important for us to surround ourselves with support. And you can do this in so many ways, and there are so many different ways to spend more time with me, right? I'm on all the social, well, not all the social media. I haven't braved TikTok yet, but I'm on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and some of you are local to me, like we discovered in the beginning, Marcia. I run a local meetup called Create a Life You Love, and we meet face to face every single month. And it's so important to be around other people who inspire you to be that best version of yourself. You don't have to do massive change. There's nothing broken about you. There's no fixing required. There's simply an uncovering, a cleaning up of the layers of crap that life has put upon you so that you can be you again. That's what we do when you work with me, whether it's a paid work or free. Okay. Let me get to my notes and see. Okay. I want to share one of the outcomes of this What's Good With Me exercise. I did it first. The first time I started offering these workshops was when I was still working in senior living. I do not now anymore. I left that about, well, it's going on 2 years ago now to do this full time. But when I first started practicing these workshops, these happiness workshops, I did it in senior living right off the back of 3 months of quarantine isolation in a senior community, which if you thought you had it bad, be 90 and be stuck alone for 3 months. It was not good. And I offered this talk. I did a longer version. I did 4 hours with them over the course of 4 weeks. And then I offered a happiness circle of support. So each week we'd meet for another hour and we'd start with what's good with me. And then we'd talk about our happiness wins, like what actions had we taken to support ourselves. And then we set new intentions for the next week. So there was always something to pay attention to that could help create greater happiness in each life. And about a month after we began those circles, one of my residents who had come to every lecture and had come for 4 weeks straight to the circle said that she came up to me. She actually stopped me on my way out one day and said, Tamara, I didn't see a way out of this depression. COVID nearly killed me. I didn't want to take the medicine. I didn't want to take meds for depression. It made me feel weird. It made me feel tired. And I couldn't find a way out, but you gave me a way out. And of course, it wasn't me. I just showed her some things. She took them and made use of them. And it's that consistent support that helped her strengthen her neural pathways toward happiness, and her consistent devotion to creating habits of thought and behavior to support her in greater happiness and raising that happiness set point. It changed her whole life. It changed her whole experience. And even though she was still somewhat isolated at that point from family and friends, she felt happier and more connected than she had in years. And I know, because I've done it too, that you can find your way through whatever you've been experiencing and move toward being happy for no reason and having greater happiness too. I know you can. Okay, our time is nearly up. I can't believe how fast time flies. I want to spend another hour with you. But I'm not. I'm going to respect your time and mine, like I said in the beginning. And so we have about 10 minutes left. And I want you to take a moment now, just like we did at the beginning of our call together, our time together, and rate your happiness. So take a moment and feel into how you feel right now in this moment, 0 to 10. How happy are you? What's your happiness rating right now? 0 to 10. And you can share it in the chat. And if you've had an increase, nice, which I am seeing lots of increases. Note the difference. A lot of increases. Yeah. These scores are much higher than in the beginning. Some were high already at the beginning, but they can get even better. Cool. Feeling peaceful is a gift in this life. Cool. So thank you for sharing your scores. Thank you for sharing your time. In just a little over an hour, you've raised your happiness level through simple yet powerful exercises. And now imagine sustaining that increase, raising your set point to where you feel an inner state of peace and well being more often than not, where circumstances can change unfavorably, but you and your happiness keep increasing because you know how to move through challenges with grace and ease. You know how to take care of your body and your mind and your heart and your soul in a way that supports you in your happiness. So I'm going to invite you to take a moment to imagine what it might feel like. And I invite you to close your eyes again if you feel comfortable doing so and you won't fall asleep. I always have to say that with my seniors because they fall asleep like in a minute of quiet. So close your eyes and feel into this higher level of happiness that you're experiencing right now. Visualizing what you want to create in your life is a very powerful practice. Einstein said, at least the internet says so, imagination is everything. It's the preview of life's coming attractions. So during this very brief exercise, you'll identify and clarify what you want to create in your life, and then you'll experience the feelings of already having it, of already creating your heart's desire. And as you continue to practice, yet one more powerful tool that you get to keep tonight, you'll find yourself taking steps that inspire you to move effortlessly toward that desired life. So, with your eyes closed, your body as straight as comfortably possible, your feet grounded some way on the floor or on your chair. Take another deep cleansing breath in from the belly. And as you exhale, imagine a wave of relaxation flowing through your whole body. And let any stress or tension that you've still been holding on to melt away and dissolve with each gentle breath, each wave of relaxation. Take notice of your face, your neck, your shoulders. Are you holding tension anywhere? Your hands, your arms, your stomach. Could you relax those spots with a breath? All the way down your legs, your calves, your feet. And just breathe out any remaining tension, relaxing and softening all of your muscles. And now, in this state of expansion and relaxation, picture in your mind what you want to create. Focus in and clarify what you see in your life. What would life look and feel like when you were the happiest you could possibly be, when you had a consistent sense of peace and well being? How do you feel in this experience? Who's around you? What's happening for you? What are you doing? How do you feel emotionally and physically? Get your senses involved. Maybe you feel the breeze of the ocean. Maybe you feel sand at your feet. Maybe you feel a fuzzy blanket because you live in the cool mountains. Whatever life that you dream of, you can create. And just notice how it feels to be living at this higher level of happiness, loving your life, this deep sense of peace and well being that you carry with you no matter what. Feel into that happiness that you've created internally in your life. If you're seeing this picture more like a movie screen, I invite you to step into it. so it's 3D, and be a part of it. Bring it into right now and notice how expanded you feel, and notice how open and how peaceful you are. Take a few breaths and just let it in. Beautiful. All right. Take a few more breaths and feel the inspiration and fulfillment. And then when you're ready, open up your eyes and come back into this room, whatever room you're in. How does that feel? Drop a word or two in the chat. How does it feel when you're to know that you're already moving in the direction of your heartfelt desire of a life that you love, of greater happiness and ease and peace and well-being? Yes, it feels excellent. Great. Yeah, it feels really good to feel good. So congratulations on the practices that you've learned tonight. So again, we've practiced the inner ease technique where we breathed, where we cultivated a sense of love, appreciation, and gratitude. Thank you, Anu. Where we have put our attention on what's good with us. These are some simple practices that you can take with you and teach others. And for each of you, I have a gift, no strings attached. So don't go anywhere yet. And I'll tell you how to get it within 5 minutes. We will end on time. It's a happiness workbook that is a companion to the book, Happy for No Reason. And it includes 21 happiness habits that you can practice. So different things, different kinds of meditations, different kind of physical movement, boundary setting exercises for those of you who have trouble in the garden. And it's a very thorough workbook with great information. And I'm going to share with you how to get that as soon as I find my links. But how many of you have attended a talk or taken a workshop or a class and felt like you had the most amazing experience of your life and it was going to be forever changed and you were walking out of there like a new, brighter, better version of yourself? Anybody ever do that? And then how many of you within a few days or a week after the event went right back to where you were before and kind of forgot everything you learned? Yeah, I see some heads shaking. I see it all of the time. But do you remember the difference between unhappy people and happy people? Their habits, right? Their habits of thought and behavior. So I want to show you how to build those happiness muscles and create those new habits to be so strong that they become your new way of being, which, by the way, conventional wisdom says habits take about 21 days to create into a strong habit. It's more like 72 days. So to help you stay committed and accountable so that you can create lasting change in your life, I am inviting you to book a free one-on-one call with me. Again, no strings attached, but everybody's different and different tools work for different people. And so in 30 to 45 minutes, we can tailor a few specific practices just for you. I have opened up my availability for the next 14 days for you guys specifically. And I'm going to drop my calendar link in the chat. This is a big deal that I updated this calendar for you guys today because I usually am quite remiss. So if you're ready to have a little more attention and to create some solid pathway to happiness, then I invite you to book a call with me in the next 2 weeks. And I know for sure as well that if you don't take action now, you probably won't take it. So before you get up from your seat tonight, if you feel called to spend 45 minutes with me one-on-one, no strings attached, no money due, then book a call with me so that we can get you increasing your happiness set point with ease and practice. Just like professional athletes need coaches to stay at the top of their game, a life coach like me can help you stay at the top of yours. And accountability matters almost more than anything because we're terrible at keeping ourselves accountable until we've practiced it a lot. Okay. Did I have a question, or is somebody just unmuted on accident? Okay. Okay, now to get the free happiness workbook, you can sign up for my newsletter, which comes out sporadically. I'm really not consistent with that. It's like every couple of months or so. So I promise you will never be spammed, and I will never share your information. And here is how you sign up for my newsletter. Yes, Carla, I will share what we do at the end. I'll stay on for a few more minutes for questions, and I'll answer that one after 9, but I want to get everybody out who needs to go. Or you can just email me and say, send me my happiness habits workbook, and there's my email, and I'll just send it to you. So you can also direct message me in the chat if you want to just send me your email, and then I'll send you that within 24 hours as well. And again, if you want to book that call with me, it's that link that I just dropped in. And with that, let me share one more little screen with you. But first, thank you so much for this time together. Thank yourself for giving yourself this gift. And I thank you for helping me do what I love to do, which is help others create greater happiness in their lives, more confidence, more clarity, more hope, and greater happiness. So with that, let me share one last quote with you. Oh, first, before we do that, I invite you to make a commitment to yourself. What's one thing you want to remember? And I'd love to see those in the chat. And for the next 14 to 30 days, what will you commit to? Write this down. Writing it down makes it real. And then stick it where you can see it so that it stays in your attention. And then this final quote. When there is light in the soul, there will be beauty in the person. When there is beauty in the person, there will be harmony in the house. When there is harmony in the house, there will be order in the nation. And when there is order in the nation, there will be peace in the world. It starts with just one of us doing this work and impacting everyone around us. You matter in this world, and your happiness is the greatest gift that you could give anyone in your life. Anyone. And it creates a new legacy. If you're a parent, especially, it changes their lives and their children's lives. So thank you so much for your time tonight. And yes, I will stay on for a few more minutes to answer any questions. Thank you. Have a beautiful night. Create yourself a gorgeous evening and make that commitment to yourself. Thank you. And thank you for all your gorgeous smiles. You're so lovely and beautiful. Awesome. Okay. Thank you, Anu. I loved having you here. Okay, I'm going to answer Carla's question. I have recorded this, Carla. I will share it with anyone here who requests it. I'm not going to put it up anywhere for a replay, but anyone who would like this recording, I will share it with you because you came. So just also send me a message or send me your email. I'll need it. I mean, I probably have it because you registered, but ease. Okay. Thank you, Yvette. Thank you, Anu. Thank you, Tiffany. I'm glad to see you here. Okay. What we do on that 45-minute call is we talk more specifically about what is challenging you in your life right now, in your happiness. What are your greatest challenges? And I will so lovingly help you see some actions that you can take to start removing those blocks to your happiness. And there's a really fun thing that happens with me when I'm working one-on-one with a client. I'm very intuitive, and I will just know the tool that is right for you. And there are so many, more than the 21 practices, even in the Happiness Habits workbook, but there are so many tools that I have practiced over the last decade. And they're not all right for everybody, right? Otherwise, everybody would be doing the same thing. But there are thousands of different ways of coaching, of different healing modalities, and we'll find the ones that you can start with, taking those baby steps so that you can actually stay committed to increasing your happiness set point, to creating greater happiness in your lives. And sometimes the call will lead to us working together in some capacity one-on-one. There's only so much we can do in a short call together. With my one-on-one clients, I invite them to commit to a 6-month package, because that's how long it really takes to create a solid foundation for a really freaking great life and happiness levels that are like beyond what anyone else you know. Good night, Marcia. Thank you so much for coming. I hope to see you at a meetup. Okay, good. Yes, I'm going to save the chat, so everybody who wants the recording, I will know, and I will get that to you within the next couple of days. And some people will choose to work with me in a group capacity, and some people will choose to do a one-on-one passion test or nothing at all, and that's okay, because you still get me for 30 to 45 minutes where I can help you see what you don't, where I can help you make a plan, create a pathway to greater happiness. Tiffany, you want to leave that question right there in the chat, and I will send you a link to the meetup. I don't think I put it in my notes. But yeah, I will get that information to Tiffany. Tiffany's local too, so she'd be able to come. Any other questions? Oops. I'm going to switch my view again so I can see who's left. Okay. There's someone else who came in as me. All right. You can, if you have a question you don't want to share with the group, you can put it in a direct message to me, or you can email me. You have my email in here. Save the chat. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for participating. I'm so grateful, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Night.